I'm Bethan Elfyn. I work for BBC Wales with two hats, really. I present on Radio Wales, and tonight we've got a live show from Soon Festival. And also I project manage Horizons, and I think I bored everybody about that yesterday, so I won't go into that again, but do look at it online when you get a chance. It's my pleasure to curate this panel of esteemed guests here at Festival Congress. And I think everyone's got a really interesting festival that they work with, an interesting story to tell. So rather than me introducing the guests, I would like people to tell us a little bit about and about the origins of the festival that they kind of work with. Maybe not Martin with Glastonbury, because that might be a bit of a long story, but I do think that it would be nice to hear about how you got into festivals as well. Katch, I think your microphone's a little bit far away. Should we start with Rob, and we'll just come down the table? So, like, why did you start Bestival? And you know, you've obviously spiraled off into Camp Bestival, and just a little bit of the potted history.
Yeah, about 12 years ago, then we were my little club, Sunday Best, which started off in London, was getting more and more kind of props, and we'd been running the Radio 1 dance stage at Glastonbury, which was my first festival experience. You know, when I was 18, shamefacedly jumped over the fence and sort of ran away from Michael Eavis quite quickly, and just immersed myself in the amazing world of Glastonbury. And that was, it's always been the sort of big inspiration behind Bestival. We thought, hey, come on, let's give it a go ourselves. And originally Bestival was just going to be like a one-day kind of, it's like Creamfields or something, where it was just, a one-day kind of electronic thing, and somehow it ended up turning into a 3-day show. 6 months after we had the idea in the pub, we were opening the gates at the first festival, and 4,000 people were piling in, which we thought was the most incredible amount of people ever. We were looking out, and it just looked like a sea of people. Now it's like 55,000, and it's a lot bigger. But at the time, it was a big success. It was like one of the first sort of independent festivals. Secret Garden started at the same time, so it was kind of us, Secret Garden, Big Chill, and then you had like Glastonbury and Reading. So it was a really exciting time, and we kind of doubled in size every year. It was very, very quick. We were like 4, 8, 12, 15, whatever. I can't do any maths this morning, but but yeah. So it was a good time. There was no competition basically. Well, there's the Big Chill and Secret Garden, but there was a massive market of people really excited about festivals. So very unlike now, where it's kind of really, we're all sort of tussling for competition. Back then it was a big, wide open market, so it was fantastic. And then about 5 years after that, we thought, well, we had our first child, and thought, well, Festival's pretty racy for a little kid to be at. Why isn't anyone doing a sort of specifically family-friendly festival? And so yeah, Camp Bestival was born.
So you've been quite a pioneer in terms of the ideas that have come into festival world. When you set out Bestival and Camp Bestival, did you have those sort of creative umbrellas in your mind that you wanted it, the fancy dress element, the kind of visual aspect of it, the different villages and areas, it was quite different at the time.
Yeah, well, again, Glastonbury kind of set the benchmark for that. Even 20 years ago when I was first going to Glastonbury, then it was, it's like another world. It was just like, cyberpunks on over there, goths, like every sort of tribe, that you could ever get at a festival. So that was very inspirational. And yeah, I mean, when we set up Bestival, we just wanted to do something different from anyone else, and we've always wanted to be different. That's the fancy dress thing came about as just like, let's do something that's, not run of the mill, and that's what we're still trying to do with the giant disco ball, Lionel Richie's inflatable head. If anyone saw that, it's kind of trying to do those things, and maybe booking bands as well that other people aren't booking. And it's very easy to kind of just do what to get stuck in a rut. But I think it's really the UK festival market does it so well. Just throws curveballs in.
Martin, do you want to tell us about how you first, which was the first festival you started working on, and how you found yourself doing it?
40 years ago, my first job was working for Nebworth House, which I didn't have a particularly big role in it, I have to say, but I got in free. So those were like the biggest shows at the time, so sort of Zeppelin, Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd. And then went to Bristol Uni, got elected one of the student union officials. One of the things we did was fundraise for Ashton Court, which was at the time, I think, the largest free festival in Britain. Then couldn't get a job, set up a magazine and record label, and then Peter Gabriel came to us with the idea for WOMAD, so I co-promoted the first WOMAD festival with Peter, which lost a fortune. So I moved to London, became an agent at Rough Trade, and then I sold Michael Evers to Smiths just before they got huge. So then Michael thought I was a genius. So I carried on working with Michael ever since. And then more recently, 10 years ago, we set up The Great Escape, co-founded The Great Escape. A year later, we started M for Montreal in Montreal. And what did we start last year? Nouvelle Prague. These are all like showcase festivals, conferences. 5 years ago, the NH7 festivals in India. There are now 4 of them. So I'm off to Calcutta in a couple of weeks for the first one of this year's season. And there's probably some other things. I launched a new one on this week, actually.
That's quite a busy...
Music Think Ski.
Busy year then, I imagine.
It's a way of going skiing for 3 days and claiming against tax, and we're pretending to have a music conference. But the local canton's taking it really seriously now, so they're throwing in free ski passes and things. And they actually want us to... So it's basically it's me and 20 mates going skiing. There might be a few vacancies, by the way. Approach me afterwards. But they actually want us now to turn it into a creative version of Davos, the huge economic forum. So it started as a pub cut, like a lot of things. It started as a late night conversation in a bar, in this case with Frigina from Ziegert. I think she's about to leave Ziegert, but anyway. And then it sort of turned into reality, and then Mark Reday, the Swiss export guy, said, I know a canton who would love this idea.
It sounds like it might be a bit of an obsession, sort of, I've got another idea for a festival, I've got another idea. And especially places like India, incredible, sort of challenging territories to set things up for the first time. I'm sure you've seen many changes over the years. And Glastonbury as well, that's changed a lot, hasn't it? What would you say is the main thing that's affected you in terms of your relationship with the festival?
Well, my role hasn't really changed, because I've always been, one of the main bookers. And one of the rules of Glastonbury is you never ever get involved with someone else's area, because that always backfires on you. And that's one of the reasons for the festival's success and how it's been able to get so big, is because each part of it is effectively run separately. Obviously, there's professionals overseeing all the health and safety side of it, etc., etc.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. And Katch, tell us a little bit about your festival then.
Yeah, I think we're all sweating booze up here. I feel like it's in the bar. Okay, so it's Knockengorroch World Ceilidh, it's called, and it's in Scotland, in southwest Scotland, in Dumfries and Galloway. And we're relatively small compared to some of the others here, about 3,000 capacity, but we've been going for quite a long time, since '98, and we are run by a family, actually, my family, and we were the first of our kind in Scotland. It takes place in the hills, so it's quite an unusual and unique location. So you have to travel up a windy road for a good 20 minutes or longer if you've got a big vehicle to get to us, which I think is the start of the journey. That is Knockengorroch. We take place over 4 days, and we have a sort of folky, worldy lineup, but we also do quite a lot of dance music, with reggae and drum and bass being quite a mainstay in our dance tent. Sort of 2 main venues.
I was quite surprised when you said the range of artists that came to play, when you've got the Ceilidh element, but also tell us about some of the artists you had last year.
Yeah, so I just had to remind myself what artists I had last year, but loosely, categories are annoying, but loosely we'd say sort of world, folk stroke trad, and kind of electronic fusion would be the 3 sort of categories that we try and span, sort of 30% each sort of thing. So we had Asian Dub Foundation in 2013, we had Cold Cut this year, View Fukature, lots of Scottish big trad acts like Braybach and Ross Ainsley and Jarlath Henderson, and a lot of Scottish names, but actually the Scottish acts only go so big. Actually, you can't get a Scottish trad act that goes above a certain level, so if we want a really big name that we think might sell tickets, we go away from the the folk trad thing and more into the world bit, or the sort of fusion thing, like, yeah.
Is it at all a challenge where the location is? Do you ever have to persuade people that it is on their route of the artists that you're trying to get?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely simultaneously our greatest strength and our greatest weakness, as is often the case with these things. And so access is an issue. Neighbouring landowners are an issue. Some people don't want to travel all that way. But we find that I keep snogging the microphone. It sort of filters out idiots, actually, because people who can't be bothered don't make it. So it's a sort of natural filter. So we get a really, really good crowd. But we're still kind of, maybe as a lot of festivals are, a little bit torn between, do we book household names that are going to get bums on seats, or do we just book incredible acts, no matter how famous they are or how many people have heard of them, or will people trust our name enough to come on that alone? And that's a constant source of discussion and argument within the team.
And Ivan, tell us.
Yes.
I'm probably pronouncing that in the most Welsh way possible. So is it Ivan or
Ivan?
Ivan, okay. Oh, that's good, isn't it? Yeah, Exit Festival. We've heard so much about it, really, in the UK of the last few years. I think it's really grown in its attraction to the UK audience. But I'm sure you've got lots to tell us about the history of Exit, when it started, and how you got involved.
Well, we started like during 90s with we've been all students, and we started with parties, and it was most of them illegal, like without any papers, just getting together with lots of us. And how we started, actually, we used the music to connect with the people from a region. We had like really bad times during 90s, like we have a war, and after that we have bombing, 99, and it was obviously that all the youth was leaving, actually outside, going outside from Serbia, like looking for better future somewhere else. And we decided like actually to have a great time during the summer between exams. And the first exit wasn't like this one. It was like cultural summer, like 100 days on the beach, and it was like 2 stages. And most of the artists was regional, from the region coming and playing for like on the Monday, Tuesday we had like a movies, then like a cinema, and then we had a theater, alternative things, and it was a lot of underground. And on the end of the exit on 2000, we made like a GeoTV campaign, like for young people to get out and vote, and it was successful. But on the end, like Slobodan Milosevic stole the votes, so all the people was outside on the streets, like going onto him. And when he fell down, we actually used the fortress. It was literally across the river where we've been with the festival, so we moved the festival on the fortress on 2001. And on 2002, it was like 9 days festival. And we had like a Zion Train, we had Max Romeo, Ronnie Size, and that was the headlining act at that time at the Exit Festival. And on 2003, we made Dance Arena, because like the fortress is built 300 years ago, and we can't choose which part, like we only choose which part of the fortress we're going to use, and total amount of capacity is not enough for the main stage. So we have like 2 main stages. One main stage is like for the live music, other stage is for electronic music, and we are like using carefully programming acts. How can we have people spreading all over the fortress, but still we keep the balance between the audience we have at our festival, because we are limiting only 1/4 tickets we are selling internationally. All other tickets we are selling in a region, and we are the first one actually combine people from Croatia, Slovenia, Bosnia, Macedonia to come to our festival. And it was like simple thing, because we've been one country in the past, and we don't need the English to understand each other, so everyone can speak on their own native languages, and they all had a great time. And the best recommendation was actually from mouth to mouth, people speaking how great it is to have fun at the Exit. So we're still on, like it's a 15-year, and now we have 4-day edition. We're a night festival actually, because of high temperatures, like we have 40 degrees during the day. So we started at 7 p.m. and usually finished like not before 8 a.m. in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Hardcore.
Yeah. Well, depends.
Rob, have you been over to Exit to DJ?
I played about 5 years ago. Absolutely incredible. I mean, like Ivan says, it's set in a fortress. Just stunning. I remember, getting a cab from the airport, and there's all these sort of old dudes with these massive trolleys of watermelons, and it's all very beautiful. And obviously, terrible story of how it all started. In a war-torn country, and you meet the people our age there, and they've all got these incredible stories of losing brothers and stuff in the war. And so it's mad to sort of a lot of festivals here, they're just, oh yeah, let's have a party, fun. It's a real sort of festival with a message.
Who do you find, you mentioned the audience there and the fact that a quarter comes from internationally.
Yes.
So a lot of people come from the locality in the area. But how do you represent that in the music and the bookings?
Once you have your headlining act, everyone is actually coming for the headliner, so you can put whatever you want, before and after.
But do you book bands, mainly DJs? What's the kind of mix?
Oh, well, we have like a bands, and like the last band is actually finishing at 4 a.m. and until 8 a.m. it's mostly like the DJs and live acts, like electronic thing.
Because I've been to a few European festivals, and I think for us coming over from the UK, it's good and challenging to watch bands from Europe with a different language, and especially being Welsh, I've sympathise with that. But do you find that's probably a difficult thing for the international tourist audience to understand if you've got the local bands on quite high up the bill? I mean, it's good politically for you to do that, isn't it? But
well, we have like more than 20 stages, so they can always leave and go to some other stage and see what's happening there if they don't like the music on that one. So it's more like from the basic thing, like roots reggae stages, till like heavy metal things, till, I don't know, like a different type of the music on the different stages, so everyone can fit with the company they find for that night, so.
And I'm going to ask all of you this, how much independent thought goes into, like you just said, you can book anything, but how much independent thought goes into that? So if you were to receive emails and, demos and things like that, how much availability is there for those people?
We found it like very interesting because we can't do everything by ourselves, and we have lots of partner organizations who are running other stages. So we have like divided like the team who's doing the booking, and it's like a process, and the team actually doing selection. And selection teams is like those partner organizations, some journalists, and like we have a really big selection team. So they're like listening to the music all lifetime, So we are following what's new, what's happening in different territories. Not only in Europe, we have like a band for South Korea, China. So it's like, a combination of good quality, new things happening at that time, and that's it.
Rob, let's head back to that side of the table then, about booking the artists. I'm sure you discover new music constantly, so it must be a bit of a kind of, every week have you got a new favourite band that you want to put on, and how much room is there for the independent artist?
Yeah, hopefully lots of room. I mean, I could book a Bestival pretty much every day of the year with the amount of music that I want to put on. I mean, there are so many amazing bands. I always kind of, when you hear people saying, there's not enough headliners around, it's like, fuck are you talking about? Like, there's hundreds of people that could be your headliner. You don't have to sort of go down that sort of run-of-the-mill thing, which, I do catch myself doing, but I always want to do something different. And I think I get contacted, pretty much every day by artists on Twitter, social media. I don't know how my email gets around, but I get, loads of people emailing, which is great. And, I openly give out my email on the Isle of Wight to, kids that are, like we're in a band, well, email me, let me have a listen. And I always do listen and feedback. And, I try and put on as many of those people as possible. We run like band competitions on the Isle of Wight for people to get the chance to win. It's very boring just being sort of, I am quite selfish in the lineup. It's kind of what I want to hear, but equally, I think people are so open to stuff. And you say about maybe people going to Exit and being maybe scared by hearing bands that aren't in their language, but that's really exciting for us, and I think that's why foreign festivals have become exciting for UK festival fans, because they don't want to go to a festival and just hear English bands. And I sort of see some of the brands going out and just booking UK bands. It's like, you're in a beautiful country somewhere, why don't you embrace that? And I think, I've played at DH7, NH7, and in India for Martin, and I saw so many amazing Indian bands, and that was kind of, I'm totally off the track, sorry, but not answering your question at all, but yeah, it's, I think it's our sort of duty to be pushing new independent music.
I think you're right about, we're coming back to a different question, but I remember going to quite a big Spanish festival and seeing the local Spanish band playing on one of the smaller stages, and this was their hometown, and it felt a little bit sort of wrong, really, to watch American and British bands all on the huge main stage, and the music industry just feels a little bit sort of off-kilter in that sense. But is that because they're targeting the tourist ticket?
Yeah, I mean, I think, whatever festival it is, Benicassim, whatever, there's no point in them just booking a Spanish headliner and expecting 30,000 English people, UK people to turn up. You need those, you need the big names, but I think you can pepper it through with local talent too.
Well, I would like to add, what we are doing for the Exit Festival. We are most of the time pushing some of the regional act, because not only Serbian, it's Croatian, Slovenia, Macedonia, Bosnia, Montenegro. So we are pushing, if there's something cool and new for this year, we are always pushing them to be as a support before headlining act, 30 minutes or 25 minutes. It's more not to get bored with the audience, but to present themselves with a short gig, and that's it. Love it or not, it's short, and we are doing that often.
Do you think this is a growing market? Is there room in the UK for us to embrace more European acts, as well as us hoping to get more of our acts out there?
Well, that's what we do at the Great Escape. So half our acts are from abroad. Yeah. And those, I mean, there is a booking process at the Great Escape, so you have to do it online. It's free, but a guy called Adam Ryan actually picks the bands. But we work very closely with export offices around the world. Pretty much every other weekend, I'm away somewhere in the world at one of these sort of showcase conference events, or one of our team is. So Adam's in Paris today for Malmö. So we nearly all the bands we see that we pick, we have actually seen, and certainly got background information on. And most of them are playing in the UK for the first time. And we've kind of trained their audience up over the years. We've always stressed, if a band's from abroad, they're going to be good, because it's a pretty high standard there. So, and I think our audience embraces it there. Conversely, with Glastonbury, just to go back to that one, for the other stage and John Peel's stage, which I book, 99% are booked through agents. And I positively discourage people sending me stuff from other things, because it's the hardest thing at Glastonbury is turning people down. And it's actually not a particularly good environment for unknown bands. So I had the first 2 slots on the Friday in John Peel, because that first Friday morning, everyone's been there on site for sort of 2.5 days, so they're desperate to see some bands. So it can work there, I've had a Australian band called Stonefield, who are completely unknown. They were supposed to be doing the Great Escape, but because half the band was still at school, they couldn't get time off school. And they ended up playing to 4,000 people. Got Steve Strange as their agent, and but it's limited, because basically what I always tell people when I'm abroad is, because people come up and say, "Can we play Glastonbury?" And I said, actually, that's spending a lot of money to potentially play to an empty tent, because there's so many things on. But then obviously we had the BBC introducing stage, Malcolm in the Silver Haze out. He's got a long track record now with picking up early bands in the early stage.
And there's loads of bars and
there's.
I remember just the DJing at a stage put up by a Manchester record label, and they had bands playing. They were all from Manchester, and it was just this kind of bar in the middle of one of the villages. I have no idea where it was, but
so if you're a new UK act, obviously you're going to jump at the chance doing that, if only just to get your passes to the festival. But if you're an Argentinian band and paying £5 to come over, whether you're only going to get a fee of, if you're lucky, of £1,000, there's probably better ways of spending your money.
Is it the size of the stages and the size of the crowd that's the reason that 99% of those bands are from agents, Martin? Or is it, why is that? Why is there not more kind of flexibility within it?
Well, I would say most bands who have the quality to play at the bigger stages at Glastonbury, it would be highly unusual for them not to have an agent. It's just the way it works, and that's the role of agents, you know. And we all know they can be not very nice sometimes, but also the good ones actually perform a very useful service in terms of just filtering out acts, otherwise you'd just be completely inundated.
And well, we'll get to Katch in a minute, but do you feel that are you inundated? Like, is it quite, when you do things like this, do you get lots of people coming up and demos and things like that? Do you get lots of
when I'm abroad,
correspondence, like Rob said?
Yeah, when I'm abroad I do, yeah. I tend to get a large bag of CDs. I still collect CDs, but I always listen to them before I go home.
Oh, that's good.
So only about 3 of them make it onto my luggage.
Yeah. That's really good, though. It's great to hear that you listen to it all.
Yeah.
Katch, then, what about the balance? And in terms of your time, how much of your year is preparing and booking and working on the festival?
Yeah, well, in an ideal world, we would listen to every single submission or request that we get, but the truth of the matter is we don't listen to all of it because as a small festival, we have limited resources, and it's always a way that you're chasing some and some are chasing you. So we can't listen to them all, but there are sort of certain things that make us more likely to listen to them, and that's things like, the nature that the inquiry comes in terms of language, length of email, making kind of sense.
£20 note stuck in the
Yeah. Sweets, I always find good.
So there's always a sort of wish list that we have every year, and we just kind of work through that, really. And then we get those ones in place before we sort of get the slightly lower down the career path bands in. But then also, because we are a small festival, we have to wait for some of the ones we want. We obviously have to wait till the bigger dates are in the calendar, so we often can't get that in early because they won't sort of anchor it on our gig because it's a bit smaller.
Something you mentioned to me earlier that is really important, I think, is this new emphasis really on festivals being the place that people can break to a larger audience and gather an audience from playing lots of festivals. And how much emphasis do you put on choosing people that you think, okay, that they've got a future? It's not just about them pleasing the crowd right here and now, but in 2 years' time they're going to be a lot bigger and well known. Yeah,
I mean, for a certain band of a certain level, we are the Holy Grail because we've sort of quite established in Scotland, if they play a Knockengorroch, they're very likely to get gigs at other festivals, and we're right at the beginning of the summer in May, so they've still got the chance to get the gigs throughout the rest of the summer. What was the question again?
Choosing an artist, not necessarily, because obviously there's lots of artists sometimes that play locally that can gather a massive crowd, but they might not be right for the festival, rather than a brand new artist who's just starting out who you can see a future with. Yeah, well, it's kind of a development opportunity, and I think festivals are really, really important for bands, especially unsigned bands or bands representing themselves, to get out there and get that development opportunity. And I don't think we don't have the resources to actually consciously develop them, but we're aware of that. But there's also quite an organic thing with us. So bands will often come to us because maybe they played in other bands and other permutations before, and they know how brilliant it is, and they want to come back. So it's the kind of, or their friends have highly, highly, highly recommended it, or so there's quite a lot of a sort of organic fit often between the artists that come to us and our festival. But that's the kind of mid to under level, if you like.
One of my favourite festivals is Halden Pop in Germany, which is about 9,000 to 10,000 capacity, always sells out. And although it has 2 stages, there's only one band playing at a time. So, and that guy, he's got a really good reputation, in particularly Germany, for booking really cool acts. And everyone really respects him. And pretty much every music journalist in Germany goes to that event, and every promoter in Germany goes to that event, because they know that Stefan will have discovered some cool new act. And that works great as a model, And the big festivals leave them alone as well, that sort of thing. So they now recognise that he's got such a good curating job for Germany. So one show in Halden will launch your career in Germany.
I think that's very true, actually. It's nice to know the kind of, like, Rob, you're so connected to Bestival. It's nice to know the person whose stamp it is on the event and the music. And going back to talking about artist development, are there artists that you remember, Rob, you've seen them come to Bestival and they might have been unknown or just starting out, and then they had like an amazing show and things changed for them? Has there been those, probably hundreds of those moments, but is there something that stands out?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you say, loads of bands that have come through Bestival, but you know, it's not like we launched their career. They were going to have an amazing career anyway. But yeah, sometimes you have those moments where it's like, okay, that was really special when you get the feedback from the artists. Like Florence did her first show at Bestival, and I remember when she did You Got the Love, and she kind of did that for Bestival. She did that cover version because she knew she was playing at Bestival, so she decided to do that, and that turned out to be a massive hit for her. So that was cool. I remember Ed Sheeran playing in the woods at Camp Bestival to like 200 screaming girls, and no one else really knew who he was. And Leanne Le Havas, you know, also doing a sort of little set in the woods for 50 people. Friendly Fires, yeah, you know, loads of bands come through, but you know, nothing like Glastonbury or a lot of the other shows out here. You know, Secret Garden, and that's our job, is to sort of be a breeding ground for breaking those bands. But then equally, you forget about the 300 bands every year that you sort of put on and they disappear the next year. So, but for me, you know, as soon as a band's kind of got beyond that point, they might come back as a headliner one day, like in a Florence style. But a lot of the time, you know, I think once they've broken, the interest's a little bit off for us, because then their fee's gone up 10 times, and they're doing the rounds of all the bigger shows. So it's exciting, kind of.
Do they come back at a favourable rate then?
No.
Friends and family rate?
No, definitely not. No, there's no friends and family in the agent world. But yeah, no, I mean, no, you don't get any favours.
I mean, I'd say John Peel stage, there's normally 3 or 4 acts each year that clearly have sort of gone that, you know. Well, you can tell the number of people in the audience, and also how well they done. So Royal Blood this year, obviously the standout one. Obviously, the first year Florence did that was like, yeah. You just knew the act was going to be pretty massive. Yeah.
The televised staging of John Peel stage and the other stages is incredibly powerful in terms of that breakthrough moment for them as well. But it's nice to know that there's always an atmosphere in the tent itself as well, which is reflected, I think. I think we'll probably go to some questions before we wrap up. Does anybody have any questions for the panel about booking artists and how people get to play? Do we want to, is there a microphone or not? Yeah. Oh. There's somebody coming down with a microphone. I think you probably got loud enough a voice though, Pablo. Where's that?
Yeah,
down here, they're down front.
It's on this way.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
When you're yeah, this is really too loud, isn't it? I book kind of a rock festival and different music events, but I've got into jazz in the last few years, and in the jazz world, we encourage a lot of collaborations. Do you know, in kind of your festivals, do you encourage artists to collaborate when they can and do interesting things together to find those opportunities, or do they just happen organically because they're there in that space, or is that just something you don't get involved in?
Well, with Glastonbury, that's probably the answer. We don't, probably. But with Great Escape, we're going to do it this year. That's the sort of new strand we're doing. So I can't tell you how it's going to work out yet, but we'll just say it.
As a sort of folky festival, there are lots of opportunities for bands to play in different permutations with each other in sessions. And we also have a sort of acoustic in a longhouse, a turf-roofed venue. And we will invite bands that are playing there in other permutations if they want, or individuals, because they often want to play in there because it's such an amazing space. And they get the chance to play with other bands as well. So we've seen some quite interesting individuals from quite established bands sort of break off, go off into the festival site and end up in the longhouse with another person from another established band, which is quite exciting, yeah.
We are part of the CTEP, which is like a Central Eastern Talent Exchange Program, and ETEP, European Talent Exchange program, and it started by the festivals, like speaking between ourselves and exchanging the acts, but not like you need to take this one. It's more like recommending 10 of them, and of course the organizer of the festival will choose one of them to play his festival, which one suits the best for that festival, because he knows his festival better than anyone else. So like we are part of that and recommending to each other the acts, and it's always good to hear about new ones and who is working well. And of course, if you have like a opportunity, we are booking those acts.
I think at NH7, the headline on last night is always a collaboration. Normally we've seen about 20, we'll get one person from pretty much every band who's played the festival, and I'll go and rehearse it up, and it's now some musicians are now flying just to do that. It'll be a weird mixture. They might do like a Queen cover, or they might do some, like an experimental jazz thing, but it's always a really good way of ending the festival. And it's also a cheap way of getting a headliner.
What's the general idea of the benefit for bands to go to somewhere like NH7, apart from obviously an incredible trip to India? What do you think they gain from it?
Well, mainly an incredible trip to India. But I mean, for the non-Bollywood music in India, NH7 is pretty much the only big outlet. Because it's still, although it's really growing strongly now, the non-Bollywood music scene now. And as you said, there's a lot of good bands there now. And you've really noticed in the last 4 years as well how much better and more of them there are. But what happens is, I mean, like Australia always send about 5 bands over. Most foreign bands go over, they'll apart from actually playing to their likely audience in India, and the guys who run NH7 also do one of the main sort of music websites. They tend to make videos out there and things like that. And like when Mumford didn't actually play the festival, they did a tour through VJ. But I mean, they did that video, and they also did an arts council project with a Rajasthan group, which then came back to the Roundhouse. So there's people getting, basically because the money's not that great in India, the bands who play it are ones who want to be there.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, quite a few.
So for stages such as like BBC Six Music and BBC Introducing, how much of an influence do they have over the booking and the choices of the artists that play, if they have any at all, or is it just they just sort of sponsor sort of thing?
I think they get entirely, don't they?
Yeah, BBC Introducing's just come back to Bestival after about 6 or 7 years, and they pick it entirely. So that's the whole rule, is that they have to be local bands picked by the DJs and from local stations. So that's the whole premise of BBC Introducing. So I think if you're an artist, you need to be sending your demos.
You need to buy Hugh Stevens a drink.
Yeah, basically, or Bethan.
There's 30, 40 shows around the UK that are introducing radio shows. They select all their favourite artists to go to Glastonbury, and then that's shared with a panel that will then be a panel, say it's a Bestival introducing stage. I'm sure Rob had to listen to loads of bands to be part of that panel to select them afterwards. But essentially, you've got a network of people choosing really great bands from the whole of the UK. So it's a nice idea, and those bands get to play across the UK in huge festivals like Glastonbury, Reading, Bestival. Where else did Introducing go? Hyde Park, and Tea in the Park. So it's a nice democratic way of getting different people to play a festival. My one feeling is that sometimes it's a bit of a kind of splash in the ocean, because perhaps they'll be so excited about going, I'm going to play Glastonbury or Reading, and then they get to play that huge event, and most of them are unsigned, and they don't have that network of managers and agents and things like that. So that'll be it for a couple of years until they can kind of make sure they've got that kind of build behind them. But it's about the experience at the end of the day, and having an incredible experience and using that then as part of their career story a little bit.
And I mean, this is obviously the AIF, and there are 45 amazing festivals here, and if there are songwriters and musicians here, I know for a fact, when we sit around the table every couple of months, that people want to hear new music from you guys. So if you've got a band or you're a singer, then get in touch with us lot, because we will definitely put on new bands and take risks.
I forgot to mention the Glastonbury Emerging Talent Competition, which is probably the most relevant way of something completely unsigned getting into the festival. So it's a really nice competition anyway, which ends up in the final in the Working Men's Club in Pilton. And Hugh's normally judge on it, and obviously Michael comes to it, and most of the Glastonbury bookers go to it. So it's a really good night out.
Do you know how many
And
bands apply for that, Martin?
It's a couple of thousand, yeah.
And then how many get to play Glastonbury from it?
Well, normally we actually
One.
change the format.
Two.
No, I think we had 12 bands playing the final this year. I'm not sure if we slightly changed the format. So normally all the bands who get to the final, we don't guarantee they'll play the festival, but actually the reality is they all get a slot somewhere.
It's a good way to get to the ear of Michael and Emily and people involved.
And they
in the
get
festival.
treated well. They get money for coming to the final. So
There's quite a few festivals with those emerging talent competitions. I wonder what the panel make of the concept, really. You said you do them for local bands only, Rob. You don't do it for just new bands.
Yeah, we've done it since we started, and I mean, everything that we do at Bestival, we try and include the local, locals. And we started that the first year, and it's just for people living on the Isle of Wight. You don't have to have been born on the Isle of Wight, but you have to be living on the Isle of Wight. And we get amazing. The Isle of Wight scene is already healthy, but it's coming along so well, and it's just interesting. So many different styles.
I think if the music goes to a panel, you know that it's properly being judged. But the kind of some of them are like voting popularity competitions, aren't they? Which anyway, not about my opinion. Any more questions? Somebody right at the back there.
I was just wondering what you thought about the role of technology at festivals in the future. Should it be that everyone can just switch off, have a break from the outside world, or is technology the way forward to make the festival experience greater and also make it more commercially viable?
That's a really good question. Who wants to start? Ivan?
Well, I can say in those days, like today, after Facebook and Twitter and everything, I think the festivals is the last thing where you can go and touch someone or see someone and speak with someone new, in a lifetime. So that doesn't necessarily you need to switch off your phone, but it's a place where you can speak live with someone, and I support that.
Most of the time you don't have signal, do you? But it is quite a healthy thing to be...
Especially in a fortress.
Or in the hills of Mid Wales. It's quite good. I think it's quite healthy sometimes, but frustrating when you're used to being constantly on there and communicating with a community online. And it is about that interaction with the community around you. Any other thoughts on...
you don't get very much signal in the hills of Scotland either, and I think a lot of people find that really refreshing, that they can leave their phones, they're not getting any mobile, they're not getting any internet, they can't tweet. I mean, maybe it's not so good for us in terms of our marketing because we're not getting tweets and Facebook pictures, but actually it's one of the things that our festival offers, and there aren't that many chances to really get away from that constant barrage of information that often, and for us I think that's a strength. Maybe it will be a choice in the future between those that deliberately switch off and those that don't. Or maybe we'll get better Wi-Fi and mobile network in the future and things will change. I don't know, it's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, there are lots of companies here, that are doing the RFID technology and, the whole chip and, what's it called, cashless systems and, constantly phoning up Bestival and saying, you need to embrace this technology, and you go to Coachella and you've just got one wristband and that's your drinks, your food, that's how you kind of operate around the festival, and it actually works really well out there. I'm sort of a bit old-fashioned, and I just I kind of a bit anti-technology, but sadly the longest queues at Bestival are often for the phone charging, and kids want to be able to talk to each other, and I mean I remember when I first went to Glastonbury with my now wife, and if you lost each other, you wouldn't find each other till Monday morning, and that was it. It's like there was no mobile phones, and you didn't know where anyone was. But nowadays, people want to sort of stay in touch. But I'd love a festival with no technology. And fortunately, you look at the crowd at Bestival, and it's not like everyone's got a phone in the air filming it. There's some of that, but it's not like a sea of phones. But let's fight it.
Not sure I can really add that too much. I mean, the only thing I would add is that one of the reasons I stopped going to South by Southwest, but quite a few reasons why I stopped going to South by Southwest, cost being one of them, was the mobile phone signal is so slow. So you get a text message from somebody saying, just watching this great band in wherever, and then you realise that actually that text message was sent 3 hours ago, which makes that incredibly difficult to make it work. So So having a facet, and obviously with Great Escape, it's mainly it's people texting each other. And obviously we're texting people saying don't go to these gigs because they're full. So it's like a really, but that's obviously different events. That's like lots of indoor venues spread around Brighton.
Any more questions, and then we'll wrap up.
I run Liverpool International Festival of Psychedelia, or Liverpool Psychfest for short. And I just wanted to ask, we had quite a few examples this year with our lineup where artists were specifically kind of anchoring release campaigns for albums around their performance at the festival. I think with us, it's because it's a very niche kind of audience and there's a specific kind of scene there that obviously the bands want to take advantage of. I was wondering if, and it's probably a comment on the changing kind of power shift between festivals and record labels and how that thing kind of works. I was wondering if that's something that maybe Martin and Robert seen kind of change over the years, or if it's something that the rest of the guys experience with your festivals, kind of bands specifically kind of like anchoring entire campaigns and releases around their activity or what you do.
Do you mean that the festivals have got more power now
Yeah.
compared with the record companies?
Well, yeah, and it's seen as a great platform to launch a campaign around the record. I mean, there's 4 or 5 bands that actually launched albums in the week of the show, so I was wondering if that's...
Glastonbury, the TV side is incredibly important there because there's so few TV opportunities these days. So that's very relevant for record companies. We had a meeting with one of the agencies yesterday, and one of the things I was slightly concerned at this year with Glastonbury is because one of the main German companies is now launching. Well, it's launching. It's tying in 3 festivals in the Nordic countries all on the same weekend as Glastonbury. I said, is this going to be a problem? I said, no, because part of the obvious cultural things of Glastonbury is also no, because you've got TV. That's,
What do you think, Rob? Have you noticed the difference of power with the record companies? I think they're still quite powerful, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think you win some, you lose some. Some years then, luckily, Bestival in September is when a lot of people tend to put albums out in September. So yeah, we do get a lot of artists and agents and managers saying, we're going to release the record on the Monday after Bestival. So they see that as a kind of feel-good factor in the campaign. But I mean, you see it as a good thing, yeah? You're not.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. I think it's great. It's just interesting how you kind of manage that from a festival booking perspective. Because if that's kind of a key point in that campaign, then you want to kind of be part of that conversation from a creative perspective to know how they want to do it. what content are they going to create around that, and how can you be part of that conversation?
No, I think it's really relevant. I have to say I don't really. I just sort of accept the information and think that's great, but I never actually actively do anything beyond that. But I think and by the way, I think it's brilliant what the festival you've set up. I saw when you announced that. It's really a great new festival for the UK. But I think it'd be brilliant. As an emerging festival, you should I think you should get in touch with the labels and say, okay, how can we sort of make this work for all of us? It's a good point.
Well, one more.
Hi. Yeah. Between the 4 of you, there's probably about 500 bands play your festival over the weekend, give or take. So probably 2,000 or 3,000 people who are there not to have fun but to work. That's their place of work for that day. So for 8 hours a day, they have to do their jobs. A lot of tour managers have to sit and work on laptops and plan the rest of their shows. And when I was in South America this year, on every festival site, there was working Wi-Fi over 10, 20 megs download speeds. And I come to every UK festival, and I can't get online. And I wonder how seriously everyone in the room here takes that. People are there to work as well, to have fun, and I often can't work. I can't do my job on a UK festival site. And I know that we're a pretty hilly country, maybe, and it's hard to get Wi-Fi connections and such, but it seems in a lot of cases it's not even a provision, it's not even thought about. Is it something you guys think about and plan for?
Yeah, well, obviously Glastonbury, I forget when it was done, but quite a few years ago now, because precisely that thing, there was some very busy tour managers going, of all the big festivals, you're the only ones where we can't get Wi-Fi, so that's dealt with there. Obviously, Great Escape has production. Because the trouble is, most of the festivals I go to these days are sort of indoor ones, so they tend to have Wi-Fi.
Those aren't festivals, Martin.
I think they're a future.
Got to have grass and tents.
Hotel rooms.
Andy, are there any other issues that, as a tour manager, that you that you face with festivals? Because obviously it's such a huge part of the calendar for artists these days.
How long do I have? I said I wouldn't say this because I've been an invited guest. I don't want to...
Right, that's it.
shit in the... I've generally got an issue with UK production standards compared to the rest of the world, particularly mainland Europe. The Dutch are world class at delivering festival production and venue production. The UK isn't. The UK is generally second rate. And I've owned a venue here for 7 years. I don't anymore, so I know how difficult it is to run a small business and with no funding. But we, with many exceptions, suck pretty badly at it compared to the mainland. The Americans are much better than we are, but I think maybe it's more of a small venue thing, but when we can't afford to spend money on production, we have to up our game in a customer service respect. Having said that, I do think the UK does pretty well in festival hospitality, but it's generally let down for me, and I hear this from many fellow tour managers. We're generally let down by the production, which is not always bad. It's often very, very good, but it's generally of a general lower standard than the mainland, generally speaking.
Do you mean kind of stagecraft, or do you mean
Yes.
more the backroom artist liaison, that kind of stuff?
No, the backroom stuff's normally fine. I mean, you've got to fight a bit harder to get your rider, maybe, but for the most part, it's the production, it's the stage, it's the tech crew, it's just the way they handle very, very, very busy environments. And I was a crew called the Live Crew, who were at the Williams Green stage in Glastonbury this year, who were they were so good, I thought they were Dutch, they were supernaturally good. And then I had the worst experience of my 26 years in the live business at Glastonbury as well, at one of the dance stages where I had to be taken off stage before I hit someone because it was so bad. But it's a massive festival, and that's not a problem. That's not a problem at Glastonbury. It's just a problem with an asshole who. But just it's a general comment, and I know it's not very popular in this room, but for the most part,
I do agree, and I think in our defence, then it's sodding hard work getting everything right on a festival, and it took us probably 3 or 4 years till we actually even sort of caught our breath and thought, okay, right, we've got the sort of front of house bit right, and now we're going to sort of start dealing with that. And we didn't even have an artist bar until like 2 years ago. So, and that's at a 50,000, 55,000 capacity festival. So I think it's just catching up with yourself. And unfortunately, we've got to sell the tickets. We've got to want people to come back. So what's happening out in the field is kind of takes preference sometimes. And I totally take your point. And I do think we don't do it as well as they do in Europe. You go to Roskilde, and the backstage there is just like unbelievable. It's like walking into Buckingham Palace. It's so nice. And but yeah, I think that's the point, is that it sort of possibly comes last on the list of priorities to keep the likes of you happy, which we should be doing, and I totally think that's crucial, because you're as important as the artist. We want you to have a good time and to come back. But so I will do better for next year.
Most of the international artists going to India to NH7 regularly say, "Oh, this is the best production we've had," for ages. And when I went to Lollapalooza in Chile, and they actually do interesting, because they just have one artist village, and then they drive you to whichever stage you're on, and that was it was fantastic facilities. Yeah.
I prefer that. I mean, I went to Laneways Festival, which is Singapore, New Zealand, and Australia this year, and the production was really sloppy, but no one complained, because we're all just so happy to be over there. It was nice and sunny, the drink kept flowing, and they got away with it.
Right.
And we would have complained like you'd never heard us complaining, all the TMs were there and all the bands, if we were here. But we're just so happy to be away. So they kind of got away with that because we're in Australia.
It might be a subject for another discussion, but I think you often hear about even the first level of touring, people going over to Europe and just saying the way we were treated, the food we had, the venue. So it might definitely be something to pick up again. I just want to say a huge thank you to the panel today, to Rob, Martin, Katch, and each.